Welcome to Jesus-Centric Life. I'm Donna. I'm here with Pastor Josh, and we have a special edition of Jesus-Centric Life where we're kind of trying to catch everybody up on the LCMS and where things are at.
Yeah, now. I kind of didn't want to do this.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, but we kept I guess a few things. We probably should have done it right after, but I left on vacation. And then it kind of drug, but then we had people asking that we didn't close the loop for them on what was going on. And so we thought we're a little late, but we're closing the loop for you guys.
Right. Now, if you're just joining us and you didn't listen to 1 and 2, the whole gist of this conversation is the LCMS has our convention every 3 years.
3 years, yep.
And it came down to 2 people, and it wasn't just one vote.
Yep.
It was such a close race that it actually took 3 votes. Is that right?
It did, yeah. It took 3 votes. And and at the second vote, that's when we recorded it. Joel Bierman, who we were pretty honest that we voted for him, he was only 0.3% behind the incumbent, Matthew Harrison, who eventually did win he got 50.1% of the vote, so very close.
And that one of our members who listens to this was like, I don't know who won. I don't know the rest of the story. You guys have to finish this.
Yeah.
So, but it also kind of takes us a little bit into our politics as a Synod.
Yep.
So where I'd like to start is to kind of bring everybody up to speed. How long has President Harrison been leading?
Yep.
Why was this election, such a big deal in some people's mind?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I would say that, first, but there's a bunch of questions there. So President Harrison has been leading for, I think we're up to now, since 2010. So I remember 2010 he got elected because that's when I started seminary, and he got installed into that position actually at the seminary. So I remember all the pomp and circumstance around that.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, but he's been leading for all this time, and our Synod, and I want to give him, I want to be honest, but all of the mainline denominations, which we would, kind of fit into that, all of the bigger denominations have shrunk over the last, 15 years of his leadership. And so we haven't been unique in that, but we have seen a rapid decline in our membership, that we've had some of our synodical schools closing. So like Rebecca Sossaman, one of our members, is going to one of our synodical schools, right? Like we've had some of them closed.
So we had 10 and 4 closed.
Correct.
And Concordia Austin is in a lawsuit with the Synod.
Yep.
They decided they didn't want to close, so they kind of broke away before they could close.
Yeah.
Which all happened under President Harrison's leadership.
Correct. Yeah, and so there's been that change. The church is declining. And I think for a lot of us, we started to see that we were kind of worried about, and I would say I fit into this camp for sure, is that as we as a Synod shrink, instead of asking the question, well, what can we do to reach more people? What can we do to teach people the gospel, to teach Lutheranism, to expand what we're doing? We've kind of done this circle the wagons type of thing, which is, if you don't know that illustration, when the pioneers were crossing the plains, if danger struck, they would circle the wagons kind of as a hedge of protection, which is value in doing that sometimes. But when we're a part of God's mission and God's kingdom, when we're called to be overcomers, when we're called to be priests and reach out to people, when we're called to be witnesses, there's no place in this church to circle the wagons. And so kind of my fear in the Synod and the leadership and the way that's the direction is going is that there's going to be more of that there's going to be more of doubling down on trying to create the church of 250 years ago versus the church that has our robust theology but looks at it today.
Which is where we get some of the terminology of missional and confessional. So we've kind of got 2 sets of wagons that are circling.
Yeah.
Those who feel they're more on the missional bent, which is maybe a more modern worship, maybe less liturgical in a sense, still honoring and still rooted in our Lutheranism, but kind of doing things in maybe a new vibrant way that may reach a different generation, whereas the confessional is kind of sticking with the original roots and how it was originally done, a more traditional sense. Is that how we define it?
Yeah, and I think the worship gets the big play time, and even within Synod, but like I don't like to water down like Peace's approach just to, we have a different worship style, right? It really is about this idea that we want to meet people where they are and then bring them into this great foundation we have in Lutheranism. And so the worship style is a means of doing it. It's an approach to doing that. It's not really the heart and soul of who we are.
Right.
We want to bring Lutheranism, who we are as a church, to people. And we see that in, that we get to baptize people and train them up in what Lutheranism is, versus just saying, here's how we used to worship 250 years ago, or here's how we existed 250 years ago. We're going to teach you how to do this old thing, which I'm a huge proponent of old things, but I think it's the theology at the core of it, not that the church was the best that it was this many years.
Which is funny, in just you and I and the discussions that we have, I tend to look at I have a more modern bent. You have a more traditional bent, but that's also good because we meet in the middle. Now, what we don't want to confuse is we're not looking at like ELC practices, ELCA. We're not talking about women preaching. We're not talking about I can't think about it right now.
Yeah, how we're looking at the Bible, the role of men and women.
We see as the true Word of God, right?
Yeah, sexuality.
Correct. That's what I was looking at.
And so that's the whole weird.
We're not looking at those things. I mean, we stay to a more traditional understanding.
Yeah, we're very
true to
robustly biblical based, and the way that Dean Gregus has said it, and I think this is peace with Christ, that we are traditional in our view of the Bible, but we are modern in our application of that. Correct. And I think that's a really good way to describe peace, is that we're not.
And we're all on the same page on staff with that, too. So I don't want to, as we talk about modern and traditional, I don't want to confuse how we view the Bible.
Correct, yeah. And so there's this kind of thing within the Lutheran Church that, like, the LCMS anyway, that if you're doing modern worship, if you're seeking to reach people, that you're kind of this liberal and you want women in leadership and you're kind of going against the Bible. And there's this vein in Lutheranism that I don't think is true, because I think we can be very modern in our approach as a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, but also very conservative in our approach to the Bible.
Correct. I love a more modern worship. Mm-hmm. I do not want to preach. I don't believe women should be a pastor. I just don't. I've probably gone as high in the church as I can, and I'm content
and you're good with that.
Yeah, and I'm content with that.
And not only that, I think that you would say that that's how the church should operate.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with that. But what I do have an issue with personally is I don't like the infighting, and I don't like airing our dirty laundry out to the world. We are fighting Satan, a battle with Satan.
Yeah.
It's like if my family has a disagreement, I don't want my son to go on Facebook and to post what a stinky mom I am.
Yeah,
right?
really?
Yeah, or to talk negatively about his son.
Yeah.
I just, that is something that really bothers me. When the family has an issue, we should deal with that. Yeah. And I feel like some of our issues as an LCMS family have really been out there to deal with. And I don't know that closing colleges, I don't know that suing a college that was once in our family is the right way to go about it. And I just have a problem with some of the ways that we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot there, and there's always, and I think so. I think there's a few things. At one level, like, it is politics, and politics always get a little nasty.
Right.
And I don't think whenever there's an election, you can't fully take the politics out of it.
Correct.
But at the same time, I'm grieved that we seem to match the pattern of the world, not the pattern of Christ's church. Yeah. Like even, so like the two camps bothers me, missional and confessional, right? Like what are we doing? Well, we've set it up as like, well, the confessionals, we're the good old conservatives, and you liberals, you lefties out there, right? Like we've like modeled after the world instead of modeling after Christ,
which is causing us to fight inward instead of remembering it's about Satan.
Correct. Yeah, and again, Ephesians 6:2, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. Then it stops at some other things, but against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places, right? Our real battle's against Satan, and we need to be storming the gates of hell, not storming the gates of some other church who looks a little different than you.
Correct.
And I guess that's what really bothers me, just to speak frankly, is I feel like sometimes the Synod will say that I'm a second-tier class of pastor, even though I was educated through their preferred route, which is residential seminary education.
Wait, they're saying that you personally are?
I feel like that sometimes.
Oh, we're not going into the whole, what do you call it? When you train... No, when you train somebody from your congregation.
Oh, no, the SMP, yeah.
So we're not talking about SMP. You're saying you.
Yeah, and I sometimes feel within my Synod as a second-class pastor because, and I feel like I'm on this messy edge of Lutheranism. Like we are reaching, like most of our people that come in through new member class are not Lutheran background.
Correct.
And so we have to operate in a little different manner. But I feel like some of the stuff that comes out, like for instance, when President Harrison goes on record saying, I don't want to approve any SMP candidate for a church that's not doing worship straight out of the hymnal, right? And so that makes me feel like, well, you're doing modern worship. You're a second class of pastor.
Okay, I get it.
You're not our preferred pastor. You're not doing things
so you went through the training. Yep. You went through the training the way you were asked to do. You came out of OSU. That's probably your first problem right there. But you you came out of OSU. You went to St. Louis. You did what they asked you to do. You went on your vicarage. You did a call there, and now you've come to
I was certified for ordination by the Synod. Now I'm out, but because I'm operating in a way that I think God has led our church to, but also me to, I feel like sometimes synodically I get called a second class pastor. I'm not the correct way of doing things. I'm not the model for what a good pastor should be. And so that kind of hurts within our Synod that's the label that is thrust on me. But
by our current administration.
Yeah, by our current leaders, and by other people. And
if you're feeling that way, an SMP student or someone who desired to, now they can't, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Because they're not 40 years of age and going into residential.
Correct.
It's really...
Yeah, and again, it comes back to my, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to empower pastors to stay faithful within the context that they find themselves in? And there is a line of faithfulness. Like, there's things that I should be called out for if I step over the line. But it's not this level of trust or this level of asking me, like, well, where is that theology coming from? There's just this kind of label thrust on me that I feel like that, and it's really, I think, in an effort to control. And some of it for me too sounds like, the other thing I'll say, it sounds like branding to me. So like branding is important in the church, but like synodically,
branding by Peace with Christ has a P, and
and some of that's helpful. So like, but I think there's this goal like in the LCMS right now that they want to walk into every church and feel like it's the same.
Sounds like Starbucks.
Yeah, it does.
Starbucks
so they want to hear the same liturgy, the pastor in the same outfit, and so that's a branding thing. I think there can be faithful expressions of Lutheran worship in different places. And I think there's some givens, right? Like, I think we should regularly say the Lord's Prayer and have the creed and have confession and
Right.
absolution and have good biblical preaching and have communion that is Christ's that we talk about it as being the body and blood of Christ. Like, there's a lot of things that I think are faithful to our Lutheran theology, but then, and prayer should be a part of it, and we could go down the list. But like, your instrumentation of your music, and if we do confession in a way that's that meets with the people that are coming in that didn't grow up saying it out of the hymnal, right? Like, those things are valuable as we train our people what it means to be Lutheran. And those would be the types of things that I want to continue to have the freedom to match my context and not be told, here's the book, this is what you need to
Right.
do. Or here's the, even beyond that, here's the game plan for ministry that you need to do this. Here's an example of it. I was just talking so we have this ACE scholarship program right now that gives scholarships to the kids. So like, my kids get scholarships.
Right.
Yeah, from ACE, and we get, nearly $100,000 for our school from ACE. But ACE, so there's this new tax incentive that, like, you can get a straight write-off now for donating to a private school. And like, it's a bigger than just a charitable write-off. I got to get all the facts. It's new, but it's coming out so quickly with the government to help support private schools. But our LCMS right now is scrambling to get in front of it. ACE is ready to receive those monies for us and give them directly to us in a way that our Synod isn't. And so that's an example of like, we can't change the hymnal quick enough to match how people are changing, but I, as a local pastor, can. I need my Synod to grab hold of they should be on top of. There's all this funding out there for Christian schools, but they don't have a mechanism to receive it for us. So I either have to invent it myself, or I can partner with this ACE scholarship, and they can receive it from our people who are going to get big tax deductions from it. And basically, instead of paying the government this much money, this is how it works. Instead of paying the government this much money, they can give it to us, and that's a straight tax write-off. That's the way I understand it.
Right.
But we have to have an avenue to receive it correctly through the IRS, and us building that as the ministry we can't do it, but ACE can. So like, but it's going to be 4 years till our Synod gets in line with that, and then it may change. But that's the level of change that we need to have, that we as Lutherans, because we want it to be theologically correct, that's a good thing, we can't change and move quick enough to make it happen.
Yeah, and it seems like, I know I bring up the pandemic a lot, sorry about that, but it seems like we learned this beautiful word through the pandemic, and it was pivot.
Yeah.
And we learned as a congregation that we have to pivot quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And we did at Peace, and I
Yep.
was really thankful and proud of my church for how they were able to do that. It seems like as a Synod, we just refuse to pivot in any situation. And it takes us a long time to get there. Yep. I want to piggyback for a second on a word that you said. You said faithfulness. That's a word that's used a lot in the LCMS. Mm-hmm. What do you think faithfulness is going to mean in 2027, the rest of 26, and the next 3 years?
I mean, what do you think the Synod's going to mean by the word faithfulness, or what do you think it should mean, like in our context?
Yeah, I think in maintaining doctrinal purity, I think in how we handle discipleship, I think in how we view ourselves as a church.
Like here locally or a Synod?
Yeah, I think as a Synod.
As a Synod,
yeah. We're having a synodical conversation.
Yeah, my fear is that it's going to mean more control and less ability to adapt. I am all for faithfulness and doctrinal faithfulness. I'm all for being called out. Like, if another pastor hears one of my sermons and I'm off, like, come talk to me. Like, if a member feels I'm off, come talk to me. I'm all for that level of faithfulness. But I think sometimes, like, an over desire to be faithful can freeze us. And again, that's why I use the example of the ACE scholarship, right? There's this thing in the Synod called doctrinal review, which I love. It means anything published by our synodical publishing house has to be reviewed by other people for doctrinal clarity, right? We are being faithful that anything we put out matches doctrinal correctness. But the problem of that is, how long does it take to change things and get things out if we have to argue about the doctrinal faithfulness of every little thing? And that would be my challenge. I think there has to be some level of trust for the pastors that I'm being faithful to my Lutheran teachings that you gave me. And then that allows us on a smaller basis to pivot quickly. But I think the problem is that if we have this fear of doing something wrong, then we're never going to be faithful. I think preaching is actually a good example of this. So like, they never taught us in seminary to read a manuscript, but a lot of pastors did. And they never said this, but a lot of pastors came out of seminary and would read their sermons. And the reason is because they hammered into us doctrinal faithfulness, doctrinal faithfulness, doctrinal faithfulness. Don't lead the people astray. Totally agree. I'm so thankful for that.
Absolutely.
But what you get is you get these people and this culture within our synod that I'm so afraid of saying something wrong that I've got to wordsmith every word so my people don't somehow accidentally jump in a wrong doctrinal way. Now, again, the value in that is I'm forming my people doctrinally. But the problem with it, if I'm not challenging them or emboldening them or catching their attention, my sermon is just a lot of words that are faithful, but it never moves the needle. And so my fear is that if we get too locked into this, that doctrinal faithfulness is the absolute, we miss the fact that doctrinal faithfulness also has to move somebody forward. And if my preaching is so accurate, but it doesn't move you forward or challenge you or give you a way to carry the gospel out into your life, then I'm actually not living faithfully.
Right.
I just have faithful doctrine, but not faithful practice. And so I think there's this bridge between doctrinal faithfulness and doctrinal practice that if I don't challenge and embolden and maybe push a little too far right here and then have to backtrack sometimes, then I don't have the ability to move people forward in the way that God has called me to.
My brother flew for a major airline, and he told me this. He said a lot of times a plane crash happens because everybody in the cockpit is focusing on the wrong thing. And he said there's an example that he gave, and there were 3 of them in flying the plane, and I want to say a light bulb went out. And they were looking at everything, but they missed what was simple and easy.
Yep.
It sounds like that way almost with the LCMS. It's like we're just locked in on maybe sometimes the wrong thing. And we have so much good that we could lock into. And we're just micromanaging or not looking at how we can get more pastors into a synod that needs pastors. We need professional church workers. That's the bigger problem right now. And they want to control this piece, and they're missing an opportunity of how can we get more in and equip them and get them ready in a way we can meet them where they're at.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at some level, but I guess I would push back that, like, a lot of this is the grassroots effort that I think needs to happen in a church. Like, I don't think a synod of 1 million people, 2 million people really isn't going to change. It's going to be hard to change the ship and move the course. And so I don't think that I don't need.
So we gotta go that way, but we gotta get the ship turned around.
Yeah.
So we gotta move forward and turn around the ship.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't know that it's the synod's job to necessarily fix the pastor shortage or fix the problems that we have. I think when the churches are healthy, the local churches are healthy, when they're doing the work that we're called to do. And so we can get fixated on the synod stuff.
Okay.
But my point is, no, the local church needs to be raising up people for ministry. We need to be reaching new people. The fact is, when we reach new people, we get new people excited about the faith. Sometimes the best pastors and leaders and evangelists are new Christians. So my point is, we got to be dead focused on the mission of God, and the mission of God is to reach more people, to reach the lost. That's our mission.
Yes.
And when we do that, when we embolden our people, the synod changes. But what I guess I'm asking for the synod to do is to trust the pastors you trained. Because that's the problem. When we build this sense of distrust, then I don't feel emboldened by my synod to go out and do what we're called to do. I feel second class and stamped down. And so all I'm asking for, I think the synod's job is to trust our pastors and teach us how to be robust in our theology. And that's what because I think I do want my synod to be robust in its theology. I want it to ground us. I want it to say, a pastor should, the family's led by a man as God designed it. Every family is imperfect. We also want the church to look like that. We want the church to be faithful to the Word of God. We want the church to follow where Christ is. And we want to equip you and send you out to go and share the gospel. And so that's what I want from my synod. I don't need them to turn it around. I need them to support the local church in fulfilling the mission of God. And part of how they do it is keeping us doctrinally grounded. But I want their support, though, for the training I have and for my ability to look at my context and say, peace with Christ is different from the great LCMS church I grew up in that I loved, but they're different. Our context is different than Kingfisher, Oklahoma. It's different than Emmanuel Lutheran Church. And they need to seek to understand how I'm still being faithful to the Lutheran Church as opposed to just saying, well, in Emmanuel Kingfisher, it wouldn't be faithful for them to do what I'm doing. I agree with that.
Right.
If I was the pastor of Emmanuel and Kingfisher, which I'm not, my ministry would look different.
Correct.
But I want them to trust the theology they've trained me in and trust us that we're being faithful in our context. And I think that's how the culture changes. It's by them choosing to trust me or learning about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and then choosing to trust me.
Yeah, I like how you said that. The church in Norfolk, Nebraska has a whole different set of challenges than Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah.
And both of those pastors have been equipped and trained, and they know their communities and they know their congregation and how God wants to grow them.
Yep.
Yeah, well said. So Pastor Harrison has 3 more years.
Yep.
Is it like a president in a way that when he gets he's probably got 1 more year in the last 2 years, he's going to be like a lame duck? Is that how it works? And if that's not the case, and he has the power to do some things in these next 3 years, how do you see the Synod when it's time for the next president? And I know you.
Yeah. No. I think. I don't think it's going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. Like, this is interesting to know, but I don't think whatever he does probably isn't going to change what we do at Peace with Christ, right? So I'm just going to, speak that like we're following God, we're following the confessions, we're following the Bible, we're living out that in our faithful and the way that's authentic to us.
Which is probably why you didn't really want to do this episode, because what am I going to say? Yeah.
Right, But on the other hand, yes, the president does have some power. He doesn't have to work through the state and the House the same way that the president would. And so the United States president loses his power the last 2 years because the House of Representatives and senators, even of his political party, are less likely to back him because they're more focused on their reelection.
Correct.
Right? The reality is the people around him are... he's got more power, let's just say, than the president does for Not truly, but for the sake of what the Synod does.
So President Harrison, in the next 3 years, has his own people that are his checks and balances.
Yeah.
So he could be very changing and vibrant and keep it all rolling, or he could complete kind of what he started out to do.
Yeah. So he could clamp down, and again, he can only do so much because, so the way that we're thinking about American, so he has a lot of power to do certain things, but there's also bylaws and rules and regulations, and those are actually only set by the voters that gather every 3 years. So he can only work within these bounds that he's given by the voters.
That we just did at convention.
And so he can't, I don't believe he can up and like kick us out. I don't believe he can, say that all Lutheran churches can only worship out of the hymnal. Now, again, he can make it harder on us, like the SMP thing. Like it's going to be harder for us to get somebody through SMP if we were to decide that. So he could make it harder on us to get a candidate from the seminary if we were to call somebody from the seminary. There's things that he can do, but as far as like saying that we're out of the LCMS because we're worshiping in that way, like that he can't do. He can't take my ordination away because I'm, at this church, right? Things like that he doesn't have the power to do. But he can clamp down, and even the messaging that he puts out that makes me feel like a second-class pastor, like he can continue and double down on that, which creates a culture of distrust within our synod, as opposed to of trust, right? And so those things he can do, but ultimately, even our polity is set up that Peace with Christ is not owned by the Synod. We are not, I wouldn't even say that we're a franchise that it says you have to serve these fries, right? We're a Synod. We walk together for the mutual benefit of each other. And so there's only so much he can do for us as a church to say you can or can't do that.
I don't say this. I'm not sure I've ever said this.
Okay, but that's scary.
I know, but as someone who is called in the Missouri Synod, it really saddens me that you feel second class, because you and Pastor Hiller have both been a great blessing to Peace, and both of your desire to make disciples, to see the kingdom and the need for the kingdom growth is exemplary, and I'm super thankful for both of you, and I don't believe anyone should cause a pastor to feel less if they have that desire and they're doing the right things and they're staying biblically true. So I want to say that to you. Moving forward, what is your prayer for Pastor Harrison in these 3 years? You were great. I think you put something out right after the election on your social media that I'm gonna pray for him.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pray for our Synod. And he's still my leader. Yep. Which I really respected and admired. You could have jumped in and thrown some mud, but you didn't. What is your prayer for Pastor Harrison and the LCMS?
So I remember President Harrison when I was in seminary. I don't know if I've shared this before, but I probably have, but he walked into seminary campus on a Friday. I think maybe it was even his day off. He walked in. He had a Harley Davidson motorcycle shirt on. He walked in, sat down at one of our tables and just started talking. Now, again, his face is plastered all over. We knew right who it was. But like if you wouldn't have been in the LCMS loop, you wouldn't have had a clue who it was. He sat down at my table and just talked to us. Like he wanted to know how we were doing, what was going on. And that would be...
You saw the man.
Yeah, I saw the man. I saw the person. I saw the...
Not the office.
Yeah, and I can't imagine, like, I know how, like, senior leadership in a church our size has, like, changed me and challenged me and in ways that, I never thought I would be, and but, like, and blessed me too, but I can't imagine, like, leading a synod, and I have to imagine, like, he mourned when those Concordias closed. I don't think he was happy about it. I don't think he was up there in the IC International Center I don't think he was up having a party. Oh yeah, we got that, Bronxville, Concordia, Bronxville, in New York City closed.
Selma.
I don't think he was celebrating that. And so I think like all those things weighed hard on him. I don't think he wants to disappoint people. So I don't know how he's changed over the course, but I would love to see 3 years of listening. Come and listen to pastors like me that you don't agree with, that you trained, right? I went through seminary completely under his leadership. Like, you trained me. Come and listen to why I approached things the way that I did. Like, come and sit down with a group of us that you disagree with. That would be my hope. In the same way you listened to us back then, just listen. And maybe you won't agree with everything. Maybe you won't think that's the best approach. But I would hope you would see the faithful Lutheranism that's in us. And so I would just say to listen. The vote was super close. You won by 0.1%. So just listen. I think we need that synod leader who could walk in as a person and just listen, because that's what builds trust. And we need trust in the LCMS. And I think he has an opportunity to build that. And I think a lot of us, myself included, would love to. I respect him as our leader. I've met him before. I would welcome that. And so, yeah.
Wow. Those are great words, Pastor. That's really great. Yeah, thanks so much for having the discussion that you didn't want to have.
That I didn't want to have, yeah.
A half an hour later, but yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate the individual that was like, can you guys finish the story? Yeah. Because I think it's good every once in a while to unpack this and to look at the bigger picture, but also to remember the urgency that we have today to make disciples, to go into the world and make disciples, and to keep growing ourselves. And it's thanks to pastors like you and your leadership that we get to do that. And we really appreciate you listening to us today and joining us for this conversation. And we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Have a great day.